Some would say I was in the presence of greatness himself when I was at the Ford Capri launch in London this summer with Eric Cantona, where he said legends never die, and I'm sure he got lots of money to be there. Unlike me, because that would make car reviews weird. But needless to say, I put 10 seconds worth of the Capri on TikTok and I got 700,000 views and thousands of comments of hate. And I'm here in Marseille in the south of France to see if the hate is justified. Or maybe, like me, you discovered that day that there's a lot of angry men on TikTok and you didn't think they were there. Welcome to the Ford Capri. In case you don't know, by now it's an alliance between Volkswagen and Ford, so the underpinnings, the chassis, the powertrain, a huge amount of this car is based on something you can get from VW Group. So it's got the 77 kilowatt hour battery, the 286 brake horsepower rear wheel powertrain, although you can get dual motored. But to be fair to Ford, they've put their own stamp, especially on the inside of this car. Now you can comment down below and tell me it looks like a Polestar 2 if you wish. It's nothing I haven't heard before, but you know, be my guest, it helps with the algorithm. Let's look at the nose. If you get a brighter color, you'll notice this black strip. It wasn't on the original Capri, but it's here now. Also, it's nicer, certainly in a brighter color. There's the yellow, which I previously had on the channel, but it shows off the lines and the angles in better fashion. So there's black high gloss going on the lower part of the car. We've got nice curves over the bonnet to help with aerodynamics, and we get these split headlights, which are definitely plastic, but they just work their way into the nose of the car seamlessly, and Capri is etched into this lower part. So get this blue color. It's quite like the color you would have seen in the Focus ST line in the past. It's nice, it's very nice, and this has a black roof to go with it, so two-tone black over the A-pillars. It's a nice color. Question I have to ask you, honestly now, and do comment below with this one. If Ford had said this was the new Focus, do you think people would have cared as much? Is it just because they were using the name of such an icon? And I get what they did. Ford have kind of been on the back foot for the last few years when it comes to electric cars. They needed to make an announcement, and somebody signed off on that announcement, including using the name Capri, which certainly got people's attention. Let's have a little look around the vehicle now to show you in more detail how this car should differ, and does differ, from something like an ID.5 that it's so heavily based on. Lower down then, beneath these Ford LED split lights, an air curtain, which is extra obvious with the black high gloss on the brighter blue. And this basically just goes right across the wheel to help with airflow and make the car more efficient. These are 20-inch alloy wheels. You can't pull out the aero part of these, so they might look like they're aero wheels, and they are, but you can't remove them essentially. You can get 19-inch. Heat pump, not as standard, 1250 optional extra. I get all the details on the Ford website. It's all up there now. Black mirror housing also going on, full black strip along the side, little nibs on the door handles for keyless. Quite a straight roof until you get to here, and then it cascades down. And the Ford Explorer, which you've also seen on the channel in many ways, is also the same car. So you could look at this like an Enyaq and an Enyaq Coupe, Explorer, Capri. That's the kind of comparison that will hopefully make it make sense in your head. Sweeping around to the back, we get more dual action with the rear taillights. Really good, just mix of high gloss, clear lenses, black, the lovely striking red, and the bar again that has the letters, those 5 letters that have caused so much pain for some people, Capri. So you get a nice slope from the windscreen, which is very, very large, into a kind of quaint boot spoiler. So it all looks nice and squatted towards the rear. Go on, say it. It looks like a Polestar. Boot capacity, 567 litres and just over 1,500 litres if you drop the rear seats, which you'll have to do from in here, which is, you know, it's doable, you know. Right, what have we got here? We got a shopping hook holder, bright white LED light. you can lift this, and there's a little bit of space because you can obviously drop this floor itself. And then underneath again, Ford have given you quite a decent amount of space in here. In France, to have your high-vis jackets with you, but also you'll get your Type 2 cable in there, but you don't actually need to put it here because Ford have very kindly given you this, which houses the Type 2 cable very neatly. And if it's been raining, this will absorb the water and then you can just tip it out when you get somewhere else. I know some people are very precious about their Type 2 cables. In my house, I like to sling it over the charger. It doesn't make my wife happy, apparently. Here is a flexible cover for the boot, which is brilliant. Really family orientated. Taken for someone who wants to get kids, bikes, well not kids in the boot, but bikes in the boot and stuff like that. Very, very helpful. A wide aperture, quite a loud beep. You're not going to miss that. Apart from the underground car park that we nearly hit today in one of these cars, and someone who had the key saw what was happening and stopped it just in time. I'm not saying there's no sensor in it, but I'm not sure, and I'm not going to be the journalist who finds out. There's not too many nods to the original car in this. One I'll show you inside a little bit later on, but this swoosh is meant to be reminiscent of the rear window on the Capri, which obviously didn't have a rear door attached to it. This friendly pairing between VW and Ford, sometimes Ford, I think, come off better, and then there's other times where you can see that VW have not given away all of the family jewels. So, for example, there's no digital climate control back here, but you do get 2 air vents for the rear passengers. The device pockets are not on the back of the seats, but I'll show you later, whereas I think in the interior of the Capri, Ford have the upper hand. Meanwhile, continuing in the back, we've plenty of roof height, even with this panoramic roof that doesn't open. Access via ski hatch to the boot. Totally flat floor, obviously, because it's on the MEB platform, so you got space for feet, knees. 3 passengers will be comfortable, and if there aren't 3 in the back, you still have this armrest, which is at pretty good angle, and just a couple of cup holders. Very, very similar armrests, if not identical to what you get in something like an ID3 or ID4. I would like to see, as time goes on especially, more things that go into an armrest to keep kids happy when it comes to tablets and devices. They're not going away, and when you see stuff like what's in the Renault Rafale and the new Scenic, these little rotating arms that come out to store items, it helps, you know, anything to keep them happy in the back. But certainly space wise, you're not going to feel claustrophobic. Lots of room. This synthetic leather still feels good. There's nice quilted patterns on it. They're just some of the details that have made the car a little bit distinguishable from the VW Group vehicles. And I like that in here, in the door handle, for example, it's slightly different. You could actually slot something in here, maybe a phone or anything like that. So again, that's another area where it has changed, but the hard plastics remain. Like this video, or I'll have to come through your screen. And so this is handy. I've seen seatbelt cutters in some cars. This is if you need to break glass. And trust me, I've tried to break glass in a car before with the standard hammer. It's nearly impossible. So from a safety point of view, that's really nice, and it's good to see it in this car. Again, you don't see that too often. What else you don't see too often is a mega storage area. So we've seen mega boxes in Ford, which is like basically a box underneath the parcel shelf in the floor of the boot, and you can put extra things in. They even have drains for water in them. So they've continued this kind of cleverness in here. So you can lock items down here when you're not in the vehicle, and you can't open this essentially. So we've seen this in the Explorer as well. It's another example of how Ford have taken something that exists and put their own stamp on it. So that is just a handy feature. You're only getting 1 charging place wirelessly anyway, but you still have another storage area for a device. There's these spongy things that prop up coffee cups that aren't deep enough, so it stops the lids of your drinks falling off. Again, that's good. Storage wise for phones, there's a little tray here that does normally sit there. It's not the way it's meant to drop, but if it does drop, it's quite deep, and if you want to keep your phone away and not distracting you when you're driving, you'll be able to do that. There's also a light underneath here. Now, beyond access to the mega storage, there's 2 USB-C charging ports, so you'll be able to charge devices quickly there. And this vertical tablet style screen is huge, and most of the stuff, apart from your climate, that's all static here on the bottom. But you can precondition, set up charging times, you'll be able to get your nav, and all the usual things are self-contained in here. Driver assistance, you'll probably want to turn off your speed warning, so you can do that. And it's not the worst system for getting to do that. Some brands make it far more complicated, so it's quite easy to use. And there's different modes such as sport and eco and normal, and if you want more traction, you can put that in. Might be something you'll benefit from in the dual wheel version in particular. And again, this floating B&O speaker is different. The materials actually feel better than what VW have put into their cars. They put their own stamp on the steering wheel. The buttons feel Ford, but these switches, they feel VW. So the latest gear selector is here. This is a nod to the Capri. Sorry to bring it up again for those that are they just can't sleep over it. But so that's slightly different to the Explorer. This screen that gives you your driver instruments is a little bit wider now. I'm actually not sure if they've put that into the facelift, the newer version of the ID4. Let me know if you've got one of those cars. And there's a head-up display in this vehicle. Now, some of the options that you see here will not be standard. Any colour apart from white was an optional extra of just under €1,000. The wheels are obviously an optional extra. There's different packs. There's a technology pack, I think is the name of it. So you can add bits to this car. The head-up display, for example, will not be standard. Here's another area where the Capri excels. It's quite small, but the volume slider illuminates at night time, and that's what your rear and overview camera looks like. Quite a decent space, decent resolution now, but it is the middle of the day. I'd like to see it again at night time. Seeing this quite a bit now in EVs where there's no transmission tunnel, and it's good to see brands using this area for additional storage, so you can slot things down here if they don't quite fit in this part of the car. There's enough of a Ford stamp on the car inside here, wraps around you nicely, and beyond that you could be sitting in a very modern new Focus. Again I mentioned, if they just called it the Focus, would anyone be so upset? Chances are, if you've driven an ID4, 5 or any family electric car, you'll get a sense of what it's like to drive the Capri. Much like if you've driven a Ford Explorer, you'll get the same idea. It's the same powertrain, it's the same power delivery, the same suspension setup. Really what differentiates this car from some of the VW stuff is the looks and the interior. But put the boot down in the car and the power delivery is instantaneous. On the motorway drive today, I was able to achieve 16, 17 kilowatt hours per 100 kilometers. Some of the twistier roads then today with inclines and things like that was more 19. You wouldn't think it's late October by the amount of people that are in the water in bikinis and swimming togs having a great time. And they don't know how good they have it. So the suspension is firm enough on these 20-inch alloy wheels. It kind of reminds me of the Skoda Enyaq in terms of how it deals with the extra weight and the battery, that kind of floaty sensation at times when you're driving along. And then if you put the boot down, you get loads of power, and if you get the dual motor, you'll have loads of grip and even more brake horsepower, closer to 340, which just seems like an awful lot for a car that is fine with 286. The Capri is smooth at lower speeds, steering is light. There's really nothing going on in this car that I can differentiate between it and a Skoda Enyaq that's just gone beside me there. It's all very samey. To be expected perhaps, and the only unique stamp that Ford have been able to put on this car because of the platform is how it looks on the inside and the outside. It's when you go over ramps and imperfections in the road, that's when the bumps get a little bit more uncomfortable, and I'd imagine people in the back of the car who aren't necessarily in tune with what you see as a driver just might make you feel a little bit unsettled. The Capri is still decent enough on corners. It has reasonable levels of grip, and you can put the power down confidently whether you're in the rear wheel or the dual wheel drive version of it. That is kind of as exciting as it gets though. Loads of power, straight line, will go into a bend, but you feel the weight of it. You can expect all the same safety aids as you might expect in any modern EV, frontal collision avoidance, blind spot, rear cross traffic monitoring, all the stuff that helps you to avoid small frustrating collisions. So essentially, with the driving being so similar, it's going to come down to personal preference when it comes to looks on the exterior and the interior of the car. And I get why people would prefer the Capri over something else. It's something different, it's something new to the market. Just don't expect it to drive any differently to any other middle of the road family SUV. Two trim options in Ireland, Select and Premium. Select will cost about €47,000 after grants with the 77 kilowatt hour battery. There is a smaller battery on the way. There's also a dual motored version on the way, but to be honest with you, this is really fine. 286 brake horsepower, mid 500s Newton meters of torque. It has all the things you need a mid-size family EV SUV to do the job. It will do it fine. And I was talking to some colleagues here today who obviously remember the Capri. We're all car lovers. If you're not, you shouldn't really be in this job, I suppose. And we were just saying, for those people that remember the Capri, they were probably never buying one of these cars anyway. It's a bit like noise of whatever you want to be anti on the internet. It probably is amplified more than it needs to be. If you were to call this car something else, there's really nothing wrong with it. It's a middle-of-the-road family electric car, much like so many other products on the market. It's just Ford have been a little bit late coming to that market in electric. So it's hard to really say too much negative about this car in line with the name thing. I get why some people are bothered by it, I really do. And I don't know why Ford just didn't call it the new Focus or whatever. But just judging it on its merits as a family electric car, it's perfectly fine. And if you're triggered by that 5-letter word, I just do wonder, were you ever in the market for one of these anyway? Just go and enjoy your original Capri and leave this to the next generation. They probably don't even know about the original and they don't care. So thank you for coming with me this far in the video today. Let me know, please do let me know your thoughts on it. Are you still so headstrong? Or are you just, no, do you know what? Not quite into the ID4, ID5. Something about this I like. I'm curious. I've certainly had those kind of comments on my Ford Explorer video, so I'm curious to see, will I get the same for this Capri? Thanks for watching. Goodbye from Marseille.